my intent at that time when I originally first started that company was purely out of passion and purely out of like, I love music. I still want to stay involved in that world, and I want to create something unique and different. And that was the idea. Everything in life is a learning lesson. Everything you kind of go through is a learning lesson, but nothing major. A setback to me is something that's like detrimental to your overall plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, knock on wood, I'd say the biggest one was like this year.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. That was literally it.
Oh, okay.
Like that. This was by far probably our most difficult year to date.
Yeah, venture hustles, life is really what you make it. Building up your brand is whatever you create it. Really ain't no limit. You just gotta love it. Working day and night, it's all about the venture hustle. Hey, venture hustles. Time to take it to the next level. Let's go.
Welcome back to Venture Hustles Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts here. My name is Jack. You might be familiar. And I have my other co-host here sitting with me. His name is Saj.
One and only.
Together, Venture Hustles, we like to focus on tech, entrepreneurship, startup. And so today, a very special episode. We're going to be discussing and talking with Saj here about his origin story. You may have heard the first version or the first part to this, and this really will be a continuation of what that looked like for him and the continuance of his journey. So, Saj, I guess we're all ears. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. We talked about a lot of my origin story, just the conception and just a lot of the things that kind of built up to Final Few Productions in part one.
Correct.
I think we ended it there.
We did.
And that was the last thing, is like kind of leading up to all the steps and things that happened up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, we're in, the current phase is basically what happened. How did FFP become what it is today?
So we're circa what? Circa 2014-ish?
Yeah, we could say that. That's when we registered the company. We didn't really do anything then. It was kind of just like, I thought about the idea and the brand. Finally Free Productions was, Finally Free was the name of an album that I was working on. And, from me coming from a heavy music background and being very heavily involved throughout high school and college. We talked about this in the first part.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Bangladesh, didn't ever live there. I moved there when I was a baby, moved to Kuwait. Talked about, moving out here permanently for college, and then everything else that happened followed. But being part of that music world, I wanted to continue and keep that piece with me, right? So then I created Finally Free Productions. And that was a lot of our clients and a lot of our customers ask, why Finally Free?
They love that name, man.
Yeah, there's no particular reason why. It's just there's no reason why I had the name of the album Finally Free. It was just a work in progress. We were creating it. I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought of it, and I was like producing different tracks and just working on that. But as we kind of registered the company, the goal was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I wanted this to be something music related, and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
I was still dealing with my first two startups at that time. Startup 1 was coming to a close. Startup 2 was where I joined as the chief technology officer, and we were working on it. And we were both working on these companies at the same time, kind of like back to back.
In tandem.
Yeah, in tangent. Now, you mentioned that we were in a Brooklyn space. It was all glass in Greenpoint, 67 West. And I didn't really have a game plan solid yet. So I think sometime around like 2015-ish is or 2014, maybe late, is when it's a little hazy. I don't know about the years, right? It's when we started the company. I had me and one other member that helped me helped me start the company and the brand. His name was Ash. Shout out Ash. And, we should have him on an episode sometime.
That'd be great.
Yeah, he'd be really interesting to have. But basically, the idea was to create something where we would cater to musicians and artists. And it was a music production and a media production company. That was that was the brand.
That was the thesis.
That was the thesis.
Okay.
That was the overall, I guess, like mission statement. In a way, right? So we would work with up and coming artists in the Brooklyn, New York area primarily, that would basically need different services and different things that they can't have access to, or it's too expensive. So I would have connections with recording studios. I would have connections with music producers, photographers within my circle around that time, because of bands and studios that I would work in and record in my network, right? And I basically leveraged that to be able to build an ecosystem. And I created something called artist development. Artist development was a term that was being done by A&R companies and A&R departments and different music companies and brands and record labels at that time that focused on artist development. It's exactly what it sounds. But I kind of created kind of like a package in a way. And it's like, hey, with this, for example, our artist development package will help you record like 2 or 3 different studio songs with a producer who would produce it, who would mix it and master the track. We'd also set up like a professional photo session with you, where you can kind of create your album art or promotional art. I believe then, we also help with songwriting. We'd also do music video shoots, basically the whole package.
Right,
for
the
you
whole
to kind
nine.
of get a single out or work on an EP or an album. And there was a bunch of other services that was packaged in the artist development brand, but that was the bread and butter. So when we first created that package and we first started marketing it, a lot of it was door to door. I mentioned this. A lot of it was like on the ground in Brooklyn, New York.
Getting the hands dirty, huh?
Getting the hands dirty.
Love that. And
initially, we didn't really. I don't. Going back to the roots of this, we didn't really have anything super concrete. Our services were super cheap. It was like less than $1,000. It was like maybe $800, and then $1,500, and we slowly started building off of that. And it wasn't all of these things. Obviously, like artist development package. I think the most we probably did was maybe like $5,000 or $6,000 or something like that.
Okay.
But once we basically did that, we learned how quickly like that was kind of like cool and it was successful. And how to package professional services, like how to brand professional services and how to sell that to potential clients.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that wasn't even my intent. My intent at that time when I originally first started that company was purely out of passion and purely out of like, I love music. I still want to stay involved in that world and I want to create something unique and different. And that was the idea.
Okay.
And no one was really selling artist development packages at that time like this. It was brand new. Like this was something that I created essentially, and then built a team around. And it was pretty cool. It was successful. We had a bunch of artists that we were working with, a lot of really cool, talented individuals. I still talk to some of them, today and see what they're doing. And that was originally how the company like started in a way, right? Like 2016, 2015.
So how long was that like the main bread and butter of Finally Free?
So as that brand branched out, one of the first things that happened to us was a record label. Or a recording studio in Brooklyn, in Dumbo, Brooklyn, called Metrosonic Studios, I believe. They found us because we were local, and they hired us to redo their entire website. And a lot of it was like, we listed that up as like website development as one of our services, but nothing.
No one ever.
Yeah, until that happened. So when that happened, we did whatever we could to make that come to life.
Make that happen, yeah.
Make that happen. We did a pretty decent job. And right around that time, I was like, all right, we need to hire some developers on our team. And again, this is before we had the option to, build a team overseas or remote or anything like that. We had to do everything on the ground, everything. Mm-hmm. This is when it started happening, where we started adding tech onto the suite of services, just outside of media production. And, at that time, we basically realized that there's something else here. We don't know what yet, but this is cool, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say probably like 2 years of just purely artist development.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this brings us to around 2017-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What happens in 2017?
So 2017, or I would say 2016, something like that. 2016, 2017, I went on a fundraising trip for one of my companies, for one of my first startups.
Not FFP.
Not FFP. To London, Malta, Italy, and Australia. And remember I told you I have a friend who worked in the Trump administration, and he was like working directly under Trump. That's through the Malta trip. So basically, Malta government, we were shopping around what to do and where to raise money.
Yeah.
And we were exploring any and all options, right? Because we were leaving no stone unturned, while the clock was still on our side. And the Maltese government offered us something like $100,000, but one of the and it was like a part of a deal that we had to kind of honor, where we'd have to stay there for like 12 months. They would give us an office. The cost would all be covered.
Nice.
So they said, you know what? We have a lot to offer. They're basically trying to bring a bigger economy in Malta. Malta's a tiny like country, right? And we said, you know what? We'll entertain it, because we had other investors and other VCs lined up in Australia, in London. We had nothing in Italy. Italy was purely fun. So it was like a
yeah, love that.
It was like on the way we had to do it, right? But so we were like, all right, let's just make a trip out of it, and we lined it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah,
like a year trip, and then Australia, whatever. So we did that, and the 2017 or end of 2016, I forget when it was. That's when we did that trip, and then my contact with Malta and the U.S. from the U.S. government side, he was the representative there. But he was Maltese, but he worked under the Trump administration, and he basically flew out there, met us there, and gave us a tour of the country and a tour of the building we'd be working in, the offices they would get us.
Were they nice?
The whole thing, they're beautiful. They're awesome. Malta was beautiful. And then we had something happened with the term sheet when we were doing the term sheet, where we were like, okay, this isn't worth it. There's a lot of headache with this, right? But long story short, we went to Malta, we went to London, met with investors. We went to Australia. That was when we had one of the biggest VC meetings we've ever had. We went to board meeting, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, in Australia, we were going from Melbourne, which is at the bottom. So imagine you're in Florida. And we had to go from Melbourne to all the way up to Gold Coast, which is basically, imagine driving from Florida, from like all the way like south of Florida, all the way up to like Vermont.
Okay.
All right. So imagine that drive. So we're talking about a 14-something hour drive, and we were on a road trip. We rented a car. So it was the beautiful Australian outback. Nice. And a lot of scenery.
Did you see Kangaroo Jack there?
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm seeing a Kangaroo Jack right now.
No, write that one down.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But, but at that time, it was kind of like one of those things where we were just exploring the world. We were exploring options. And it was a good time. So during that road trip, honestly, like, I don't know what happened. We were talking about different ideas and different things that we were going to do, and something clicked. I wasn't even driving. I was in the back seat. I immediately realized, like, and this always stands out to me. I was like, man, I think we need to go back and fully pivot FFP, like Finally Free Productions, and just put our sole focus and energy into software and tech. And this needs to happen. And again, nothing crazy happened at that time for us to be like, wow, there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of growth here.
Just more of a gut feeling?
It was a gut instinctive feeling, and more of like, I've been doing this for 5 years now. Why don't we just go all into this? I know exactly how to make this work. So I just had that like eureka moment, right? Like in the car. And anyway, we had that investment trip. I came back to New York, and I basically told my team, rallied them up, and I said, everybody that was working on media production, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, the main focus is going to be tech now. We're still going to have some artist clients here and there, because it's just an ongoing.
We have them, right.
But we're going to slowly start phasing that out. And then when that happened, when that rolled out, we got hit and slammed. I mean, we were doing everything right. And everything that I anticipated, everything that I planned and envisioned started coming to fruition. And I was like, holy shit, we have something.
Yeah.
Like, it's, amazing. Then we planned the rest of the year, and the goal was to kind of like leverage that and build that into the next year, and we kind of just wanted to scale. And right around this time is when Ash, who was like, basically helped a lot of the initial stages and whatnot, he had a medical issue, and he had to part from the company, right? And he's doing a lot better now.
Good. That's awesome.
Man's married.
Oh. And, that's fantastic.
But he had to. So I was kind of like, honestly, at that time, it was very scary for me personally, because it was the first time where I didn't really have any partners in the company,
Right.
or anybody that I did something with.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a very good idea and a very profitable idea, and we achieved a lot of success.
Right.
And whatever happened with Ash was a very unfortunate timing thing, and it was horrible. Dearly missed.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like panicking. Like I was kind of panicking internally. I was like, man, we can't fuck this up.
Yeah. Well, now it's on you now.
Yeah.
You're solo dolo.
So at this point, we actually had a solo office in that same Greenpoint building, and I started living in Long Island. I got a house here. So when we got a house here, I was still making that commute from Long Island to Brooklyn. So imagine how crazy that was every single day. And I think Ash was who made that suggestion. He was like, dude, just get an office there or something like that. I don't remember. He's like, why don't you just do that? We had a lot of people that were coming in from Queens and Brooklyn to our office. So we had developers, we had engineers by that time, because we made that pivot. We experienced growth.
Right.
We immediately started hiring developers, right?
Growing the team.
Yeah, growing the team. And it wasn't like remote. Everybody was in-house in our office.
Mm-hmm.
So the question was, are they going to move with me? So then I think, what was it, like 2018 is when we got an office in Glen Cove. We basically moved. And as we kind of made the transition, we were, like I said, we were doing like 200% plus growth year over year. And it was just like pretty drastic growth every year. And it was just scaling, and it just, the company took off essentially. Yeah. I think that over the last couple of years, as we kind of adjusted, I think right before you came in, like a couple months before you came in, which was 2020, as we grew, that's when we got this office, which is probably 10 times bigger than our last office.
I've heard the stories.
Yeah, it was a tiny little space. Everybody was cramped up. We were paying like $600 a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, something like that. Well, the Glen Cove office was more expensive. The one in Brooklyn was $600 a month.
Oh.
The Glen Cove was, I think, $1,200, something like that. Then we were like, it's time to grow the team, to upgrade. We're doing well. We need to kind of blow this up as much as we can. And we started recruiting. We built a sales team. That started doing really well. So basically the formula that I had was working, was coachable, was trainable, created a system. And then as we grew, like from that 2017 period to now, what are we talking about? 5 years basically in the making.
Yeah.
We've come a long way, man. And the reality is we experienced quick growth. We had to do something to buffer it. And, we started from Brooklyn, and then we moved to Glen Cove, and then we moved to Levittown in this office. And all of it was purposeful. Like it was, none of it was like, it was all need based, Yeah. And that was the goal. And now we're here. That's basically some of the key things that happened.
So during that time period of let's say you get the Glen Cove office 2017-ish to now, were there any major like setbacks during that period, or was it all good times?
From Glen Cove to now?
Yeah, like after the pivot, let's say, were there any major setbacks?
What would you say major is?
Not minor. I would just say, like when I say that, the first thing that comes to mind. When I say major setback, like the first thing that came to your mind.
From Glen Cove or from
Brooklyn? From like 2017, let's say, to now.
Okay, not from Glen Cove. Glen Cove is like later than that. So, man.
Any setbacks or learning lessons?
Everything in life is a learning lesson. Everything you kind of go through is a learning lesson, but nothing major. A setback to me is something that's like detrimental to your overall plan. Mm-hmm. Like knock on wood, I'd say the biggest one was like this year. Mm-hmm. That was it. That was literally it.
Oh, okay.
Like that. This was by far probably our most difficult year to date.
Yes.
Since conception, like even before your time. Mm-hmm. So that's why I would say that would be the only setback. That would be the most major setback. So we had minor setbacks here and there, so I don't really know what you mean or how I would categorize that.
What would be a minor setback then?
Man,
because I know the journey wasn't perfect.
A big deal falling through, us putting in hundreds of hours on something, or us not being able to fully deliver it the way we wanted to, or something like that, or something, just something along the lines of that. Those would be setbacks in my world. then maybe developer emergencies that have happened over the years. We've had some resource problems, but as we were kind of establishing things, but none of them would be major and like not fixable.
Okay.
I think again, maybe my memory's failing me. I don't know, but I could tell you that by far in the, from us being incorporated to now, what we went through this year is probably the most major problems that we ever. And we just released an episode on this, I think, detoxing toxic situations from your company and how to avoid pitfalls. So if you guys, I don't know if we're going to release this before or after, but if you haven't, check out that episode because we talk about that. Yeah. So I don't want to dive too much into that.
No. Oh yeah, 100%. So based on your experience, your success, any tips or any things that you wish you would have done better or you wish you would have known?
No, my story is not really like super complicated or super long and lengthy. More of my in-depth stories are in the original like startup days because everything that we did at FFP was more refined and fine-tuned
from your experiences.
So that's why it's like this part 2 is quick, right? Because it's like kind of like we figured it out and we did a lot of things, and of course we have thousands and tens of thousands of hours into these to build these brands, successful brands and stuff. But the reality is we were significantly further along than we ever were in any other company that I've started before, simply because the 2 startups that I've gone through gave me a lifetime's experience. And something else, like personally, is like through this process at FFP, I lost my brother, and my only brother. Yeah, thank you. And he this happened because he was also like part of that journey for me personally, where he saw that growth, and I was happy that he was kind of able to see that growth. Yeah, and I was also sad. It was bittersweet because he couldn't see us. Like it wasn't there when it like took off, but he did see us transition and do well.
100%.
But that changed me, man. When that happened, me personally, like that, I think I matured overnight like crazy. Like
I can imagine.
Like a lifetime.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, if someone dies off of a car accident or like something quick and tragic, and not to get morbid here, like it's quick and easy, and it's a lot easier for you to kind of get over. The way I see it. Okay. It's still difficult, right?
Yes.
But
it's different though.
It's different. But like with the thing that happened with my brother was like, it was like cancer, right? So it's like we saw the hospital, the process, and it was like brutal.
It's drawn out
for like 2 years.
It's oh man.
So it was like,
so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, man, thank you. And it was it's still like tough, but like I realized that I think for me personally, that changed everything for me, and that changed my work, my career, my personal, my mental, even my mental fortitude. Like I think it significantly hardened me a lot more. And I don't know if like a lot of other people can relate, or other people can have been through this. Maybe they can relate. But just the timeline of all this was happening. Like I was considering shutting down at that time. Like I considered shutting down everything. I did shut down. I did not go to work. I did not attend to things because I had to do this family hospital stuff. But the reality is, not to say a sob story here, but like the reality is that was probably a pivotal, like it would be a disservice to not mention that. Yeah. Because that was a pivotal part of my story. 2 years of my life went into that, and it was while the company was growing and doing well, And
well, he'd be proud, I think. He'd be proud.
Thank you, man. I hope so. I think so. I hope he'd be proud. But I think in terms of lessons, I think it's no one's gonna ever believe. Believe it or not, part of the main reason why I never had a partner at FFP, and even though like I've talked about this, is because through the roughest times, as we kind of got through, even like, I'm talking about the early days, the pivot, my brother and everything, I did it kind of like solo in a way, and then I realized like I don't need anybody. Like it has to be one of those things where don't abandon your idea and your vision if nobody else believes in it. And if there's any glimmer of hope, like it's you, it's you, and you're driving.
Bet on yourself.
Yeah, you got to bet on yourself. So, but the reality is like, that's exactly what happened. Like I'm a realist. I know when to walk away. I know when something's an L and you got to take it. But I also
this wasn't it.
no.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like. I'm a hard man to kill.
Is that right?
So yeah. So it's not literally, but
Oh yes, of course.
but that's the thing. Like, yeah. But I'm just glad it worked out.
I say so, and
Trials
I
and
think
tribulations.
it's just the beginning for FFP.
Yeah.
It's just the beginning. So, well, I appreciate you sharing, man.
Thank you, man.
I'm hoping that I know I loved listening, finding out. Although I knew I would say a good amount of that, but even still, I definitely learned some couple things, and it's even for the 2 years that I've been with you, and I met you a couple years ago. I think you've improved a lot, and from a journey standpoint, I'm happy to be on it with you, man. So
Dude, happy to have you, man. I've always said it. So I think you're part of the future, part of like the present right now, and obviously like you've done so much. You came at a good time. I always say this. You came, even though it's been very hectic and stressful, but like you came at a good time when you weren't part of like the figuring out process. You weren't part of like where you would essentially make no money. You came at a good time in that regard, but also enough room for us to wiggle into and morph it into whatever we want, and also other things.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
To hopefully a very bright future. We know.
Yes,
a lot
we
of
do.
Horizon, so.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, do you wanna sign us off here?
Yeah, listen, man, if you're listening to us at this point, I don't know how many of y'all are, and you haven't subscribed, I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't know. Look, our goal is to add value. Our goal is to kind of provide any sort of insight and information from our experiences, and maybe things that can potentially help, maybe even change your life. I don't know. A lot of things that we're saying changed my life. But to kind of resume, yeah, man, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, I don't know what you're doing.
Smash it.
If you haven't followed us on Apple, Spotify,
Instagram,
why?
TikTok,
Instagram, TikTok, YouTube clips,
Shorts, YouTube Shorts,
YouTube Shorts. No, it's not clips or shorts. Sure. We're everywhere. Any platform. We're not on Rumble. But
yet at least, I don't know.
Yeah.
Never know what the future may hold.
But look, we're here. We're here to stay. Whether it's a slow growth, fast growth, whatever it is, join us on the journey. Talk to us. Let us know what your thoughts are, what your feedback is. We'd love to hear from you. Maybe you can even come in and feature as a guest someday. Who knows?
Saj and I have thrown around some ideas like that. We got some cool stuff planned. So
yeah, 100%.
Just wait on it.
Yeah, man. And that's pretty much it. That's sayonara from me, and we'll see you next time.
Until next time.
Yeah, venture hustles, life is really what you make it. Building up your brand is whatever you create it. Really ain't no limit. You just gotta love it. Working day and night, it's all about the venture hustle. Hey, venture hustles. Time to take it to the next level. Let's go.